Most people think the path to wealth in franchising is simple: own more locations. And for a while, that works. You go from one unit to three, from three to 10, from 10 to 20. And on paper, it looks like you're scaling. But at some point, every serious franchise owner runs into the same invisible ceiling. More locations don't always create more leverage, they create more complexity, more managers, more leases, more payroll, more operational drag. There's a big difference between building income and building an asset. And most franchise owners spend their entire careers optimizing for income without ever realizing they're sitting just one level below where the real wealth is created. I'm Justin Kaiser, and I've spent the last 24 years building businesses. I built a franchise brand from scratch and scaled it to over 100 franchise territories in 3 years before an acquisition. And what I learned along the way is that the real wealth in franchising isn't in owning locations, it's in owning the platform. A franchise platform is the brand, the system, the infrastructure, the economics, and the growth engine that hundreds or even thousands of franchise owners plug into. When you own the platform, you're not just getting paid for working, you're getting paid for ownership. This is how private equity looks at franchising. They're not trying to run locations. They own brands, they own systems. They're owning the thing that scales, whether they personally touch it or not. And this is where the real shift starts to happen for sophisticated franchise owners. At some point, you realize that owning 20 locations in one brand is actually riskier than owning minority stakes in 10 different brands. One is concentrated risk with operational burden. The other is diversified exposure with leverage. Owning platforms creates three things that franchise owners rarely get from owning franchise units: true leverage, diversification, and asymmetric upside. Leverage because the brand scales whether you add more of your time or not. Diversification because you're no longer dependent on one concept, one category, or one management team. And asymmetric upside because when brands reach scale, the valuation multiple expands in a way that individual locations never do. This is why you see the same story over and over again in private equity and franchising. The real money isn't made by the people running the restaurants, the gyms, or the service trucks. It's made by the people who own the brands that those franchise owners are buying into. That doesn't mean that owning franchises isn't a great business. It is. It just means it's not the top of the capital stack. The smartest franchise owners eventually make a transition from asking, how many locations should I own, to asking, what should I own a piece of? That's the difference between building a job and building a portfolio. And franchising is uniquely suited for this model because it creates predictable unit economics, repeatable expansion, and scalable systems. This is exactly what long-term capital wants. The future of franchising isn't just more franchise owners owning more units. It's sophisticated owners and investors building portfolios of franchise platforms that compound over time. The people who understand that shift early get to play a very different game. If you're ready to benefit passively with equity in multiple franchise brands, then let's talk. Let's talk about how we can start growing your empire together.